Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Oregon. I'm your host, Mike Ducett. We have a great and exciting show for you today. We're going to be first talking with our Director of Community Development, Elise Cruz, and then in our second segment we'll also be talking with Sarah Karlen, the Director of Disney's Beauty and the Beast, which will be performed at the Oregon High School Performing Arts Center here in early August. Today's show is a little bit of a continuation of last month's episode, as we had a lengthy discussion with Randy Glish and current Village President Phil Van Kampen about affordable housing issues. So I'd like to welcome Elise Cruz to our show today, and thank you for taking the time to be interviewed.
Thanks for having me.
So Elise, can you tell us about your journey and how you came to be the Director of Community Development? What kind of background experiences have led you to Oregon and this career?
Sure. It's definitely been a journey, kind of a full circle journey for me. Graduated from Oregon High School in 2009 and definitely thought I was going to kick the dust off this little town and not come back, or at least not come back to my hometown specifically. But went to Northland College up in Ashland, Wisconsin, a very small liberal arts school, about 500 students, so much smaller than Oregon High School, and studied sustainable community development there as my major. Ended up working for the city of Ashland, which is similar size to Oregon, a little bit smaller, in their planning department as my senior year internship, and that turned into my full-time job when my boss left in the middle of winter and nobody wanted to move to Ashland in December. So
I wonder why.
I wonder why, yeah. So I was 22 years old and they're like, here, intern, you kind of know what's going on, figure it out. So I worked for about year and a half for the city of Ashland, getting to work on all kinds of different projects right there on the Lake Superior waterfront. A lot of redevelopment projects and working with the railroad there to get some trails built and things like that. So a lot of really good experiences, but I definitely felt in over my head and I thought, this is really interesting, but I'd love to know what I'm actually supposed to do here. So decided to take grad school as an opportunity to get out of Wisconsin for a little bit. I got married shortly after graduating from college, so my husband, who's from Milwaukee, he and I decided let's get out of the Midwest for a little bit, so we moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. I went to UVA for my grad program. It was Urban Environmental Planning is the title. It was within the School of Architecture, so it was pretty cool all of a sudden to go from this really crunchy environmental liberal arts school to this kind of really preppy design school in Virginia. And so big culture shock, but learned a lot while I was there. Got really good at making PowerPoints that looked nice because otherwise, people kind of laughed you off. Learned a lot there. I ended up working after graduating for a nonprofit that works with low-income families. Did a lot of grant writing and program management for them, and then worked for a real estate developer that works with the university to build some office parks, some other facilities kind of that support the university off of their main campus. So in 2019, my mom actually cut out the article from the Observer and sent me the notice that the village was hiring what at the time was called the Director of Planning and Zoning Administrator. Similar title, similar roles, just kind of more specific to planning and zoning issues. So kind of laughed her off the first time and said, I kind of had a mixed experience working for local government before when I was in Ashland. I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to go back to. And I really was pretty sure that I didn't want to end up back in Oregon. We thought we'd end up back in the Midwest eventually, but probably more Madison, Milwaukee, or somewhere else. So the first time that they posted the position, didn't even apply. They ended up posting again because they didn't get a good pool of applicants, and decided to just apply. And I thought, well, I don't really know enough to say no, so let me just find out who's there and meet folks and find out what's going on in Oregon. And it had been a long time since I'd really, hadn't been up to date on all the issues that had happened in the last 10 years since I was gone. So did lots of Zoom interviews before Zoom was even a thing.
Right.
And they actually tried to fly me up here, and my flight kept getting canceled because of thunderstorms in O'Hare. And my husband kept telling me, maybe this is fate telling us we should just stay in Virginia. And I was like, no, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing another Zoom interview, and I did come up later in the summer and got to meet folks and just had a really good feeling about the environment at the village. Is really kind of family oriented and just love this community.
Yeah.
And I think once I came back here, I realized, wow, Oregon's really grown, but it's also retained kind of that small town feel. lots of new businesses, lots going on downtown.
Yeah.
So kind of something I wanted to be a part of. And then moving into a phase of my life where I was ready to start a family, I thought, well, having grandma
Right.
nearby would be helpful. And also, I
Exactly.
think all the
Yeah.
things that I thought were kind of boring or corny
Mm-hmm.
about Oregon as a kid growing up, you get a little bit older and think, actually, that'd be a nice place to
Get some perspective, right?
grow
As you
old
grow
and raise
old,
a family.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So never say never. But here I am.
Well, I'm glad you ignored fate and your husband, and you ended up here in Oregon again. That's fabulous. So as I kind of previewed at the intro to the show, there was a lot of discussion last week. Now I keep saying last week, I mean last month, about affordable housing issues. So kind of what current steps are you taking as this Director of Community Development to kind of address this issue?
So it's kind of a mix of being proactive with some of our plans and our zoning code, which is kind of the nuts and bolts that tells me how high buildings can be and what uses are allowed and how close they can be to, property lines and things like that. And then also our long-range plan, so our comprehensive plan right now we're updating. We do that every 10 years, so that's kind of our vision for who do we want to be in the future, not just who we are now, but what would we like to see certain areas developed as, what types of housing would we like to see. So kind of being proactive with some of those plans, and then also being a little bit reactive and with developers and trying to work with folks that either approach us and say, well, we're looking for some land, we have a project, but we don't know where to put it, or property owners that say, I have some land and I'd love to sell, and what do you think would be a good use here? So trying to match up our plans with the actual kind of situation on the ground, and we're somewhat subject to what the market is demanding, and obviously affordable housing finance is a whole beast that I really am still learning the ins and outs of, but we have built some relationships with some really great affordable housing developers. It's also called workforce housing is another term you might hear, or subsidized senior housing. And so really starting to, I think, get a foothold on how this works, what are good sites for these types of projects, and how, as the village, we can kind of support them through either different incentives or just trying to make the approval process go smoothly so that we're not another barrier to affordable housing, but that we're really helping try to meet some of the need and the goals that the village has to try to have more.
And this is not just an Oregon problem, right? This is a not worldwide, but nationwide, and specifically Dane County as well, correct?
Yes. The stat that I keep hearing is that at least 1 out of every 3 people moving to Wisconsin is moving to Dane County. So we're really feeling the push. I think all communities in Dane County to absorb that that growth. And I think there's a thought, well, Sun Prairie's growing, Verona's growing, Pittsburgh's growing. Let's just let them kind of deal with this and take it from there. But unfortunately, that's not really fair to those other communities. And also, people want to live here because we've got great school system, great parks, good quality of life, a really quaint, vibrant downtown, and people want to be a part of that. So again, it's always this balance between people move here because we have this small town connected atmosphere, but the more people that move here, the less we become a small town. So trying to just strike that balance so we don't kind of lose sight of who we are, even with new people coming into the village, or a lot of the people that we see that are moving into some of these affordable units are folks that already lived in the village and they were just stretched too thin with the amount they were paying for their rent or mortgage, or wanted to downsize from their home and wanted to stay, especially for seniors. A lot of folks want to stay in Oregon. We have a great senior center. They want to stay near their friends and their community that they've been a part of for a long time, but there's nowhere for them to go. So we're trying to keep those people here and have the range of housing choices at every size, every price point, so that somebody who wants to move here, they have a place to go.
And they have access to it, correct. All right. As a follow-up, what kind of challenges are you experiencing with trying to bring in some of these developments?
Well, obviously with the market as hot as it is in Dane County, it's certainly a lot easier for a developer, a lot easier way to make money, and a lot less paperwork with the federal government to just come in and do a market rate project where you're just charging kind of what the market will allow. So those
Right, so tell our viewers, like a market rate means like the current value of homes in the area comparatively to the rest of the homes, right, versus a development that workforce housing would be government subsidized in some extent, correct?
Right. So that's subsidized housing is limited to it's all based on your family size and then your income level, and then how it's calculated is actually based on our county median income. So for Dane County, that's fairly high because we have a fairly highly educated population, and a lot of jobs here. So the county median income is somewhere around $80,000, and so the affordable housing kind of will take different ranges of that. So for example, the Prairie Brook Apartments on Wolf in Janesville that just opened up last year, that's 153 units, and those serve folks that are within 50 to 70% of the county median income.
Sure.
So roughly, making $40,000 a year to maybe $60,000 a year or something. So certainly, most folks are working. There's a building that's set aside for seniors, and again, it's based on their income level, their family size. So as a smaller family, your kind of expected income is lower. Other projects aim for more of like 30 to 70% AMI or CMI, so like county median income. So again, reaching folks at a little bit of a lower income bracket. But each of these projects kind of has a quota for each income level that they try to meet. So not everybody is going to be at the lowest bracket, but kind of a range of incomes and family sizes and units. And a lot of what I'm referring to is apartments.
Right.
Building affordable homes for sale is kind of a whole different animal. One project that we've had some success with is the Habitat for Humanity project on Janesville Street. I got to be part of that from the beginning because I was looking for a house. I was trying to get out of living in my mom's basement when we first moved here, and looking around on Zillow and stuff, and came across this property that was a little over an acre on Janesville Street right across from Wisco, and thought, I've never really noticed this property before. Has some unique features on there. It's a big property, but this is not something I'd be interested in necessarily for my house, but had started getting connected with Habitat just because I was new to this role and trying to just go around and meet everybody, and thought, I wonder if this would be something they'd be interested in. So went through the whole journey, and that's gonna anyway, that's under construction now, but that's going to be
really exciting.
They're 4 duplex buildings, so 8 units, but Habitat does all for sale ownership model, and they provide the subsidized mortgage for folks, but they have to put a lot of time and effort in.
I bet.
A lot of
hoops,
home ownership classes they have to do. I kind of wish my neighbors maybe had to take a good neighbor class too, but no, everyone that works there, to get those homes works really hard to be in there, and they end up staying a really long time too. A lot of families that are first generation to even be in America. A lot of immigrant families end up going through the Habitat program, and they end up staying in these homes a really long time, and being a great addition to the village. So hoping we see more of that in the future. But obviously homes take up more space, and so we always want to think about too, how can we kind of get the most bang for our buck, and we're trying to densify within the village and not continue to push into the farmland every time we're trying to grow, but we have a lot of areas that are kind of ripe for reinvestment and redevelopment and really underused. A lot of industrial areas where lots of parking, and they might not be kind of used to the extent that they were before. So with some of these planning efforts, we're trying to reimagine North Main Street, Market Street, Burr Oak. What could those areas be if they weren't just continuation of storage units and things like that?
That's great. You touched about part of your educational journey was this idea of sustainability, and I just read in the Observer this past week that the village has kind of committed to be carbon neutral or net zero by the year 2050, which I think is great and exciting news. So what do you see right now as what kind of commitment, in what ways does the village and the citizens of Oregon have to kind of commit together to make this happen? Like, what kind of actionable steps do you see kind of occurring?
Yeah, lots of different angles with this one. Obviously, from a village perspective, we're moving into a lot of new buildings now, which is a good thing in terms of sustainability, because our older buildings for library, village hall, senior center is kind of our next big project. Very inefficient buildings in terms of heating and cooling, putting money into these older buildings and having to buy new kind of conventional HVAC units is very costly money-wise and also just kind of carbon-wise. So that's exciting, all new LED fixtures in all those buildings, and the library has solar, geothermal as well. So those are moving in the right direction towards helping those buildings take up less of a carbon footprint. All the vehicles that the village owns to Public Works, police department, obviously, we're putting a lot of miles on the road, taking care of the roads and keeping people safe. And I think we're trying to keep our eyes on for like electric vehicles, for example, when the technology kind of catches up to what our needs are. Obviously, we live in kind of a harsh environment at times, and the police put their vehicles definitely through the ringer, just again trying to get to people as quickly as they can when they need help. And so as the technology kind of catches up, we feel like those electric vehicles are reliable enough and a good investment. I think we'll definitely start looking at some of those purchases to try to make them again kind of less of a carbon footprint. There's, again, back to the planning, my world, we're really trying to encourage more mixed use development. So have commercial amenities, so coffee shop, ice cream parlor, a dentist, whatever it may be, within neighborhoods, so that people have places they can walk to, and then you don't have to get into your car to go everywhere, and have more, shopping opportunities within Oregon, so that you're not running to Madison, Middleton, Fitchburg anytime you need something that isn't available. From a citizen perspective, obviously, people make choices with their homes, their vehicles. We're trying to really make a big investment in our bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So again, people can get to places within Oregon, and they don't necessarily have to use their cars. So we'll be doing a bike and pedestrian study next year too, to kind of look at some of the gaps in our system. We do have some existing trails, and we have obviously sidewalks on most of the roads, but there are gaps in that system. We're trying to connect some of our trails together so that folks can again get where they need to go and have some choices. If they want to get on their bike, that they have a way to get there safely.
That's exciting. So it sounds like we have tons of great initiatives coming up. As we know, citizens can stay informed with all this information by subscribing to the Village board meeting minutes and kind of know what's coming down the pike. So thank you for taking some time to be with us today, Elise. And we're going to take a break. In our next segment, we'll be featuring Sarah Karlen from Oregon Straw Hat Players. Welcome back to our second segment of the show today, and we're here with Sarah Karlen, who is the director of the Oregon Straw Hat Players version of Disney's Beauty and the Beast, which is coming here in early August at Oregon High School Performing Arts Center. Welcome to the show today, Sarah. I'm glad to have you here. I know I'm looking forward to seeing the show. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be a director and how you came to be involved with the Oregon Straw Hat Players organization?
Absolutely. So I grew up actually in this area and then went away for college. My college degree, my first one, is actually in history and religion because I am a pastor. And so that's kind of the started. But I was always involved in theater growing up and even came to Oregon Straw Hat Players shows because I knew people in it when I was growing up. And then when I came back and started working at a church in Madison after college, I was like, I want to get involved in community theater. And so I knew people in Oregon, so I started getting involved. So that was a really long time ago. That was 1996. And so I've been involved with Oregon Straw Hat Players in some capacity since that time. I've directed, I've acted, I've designed, I've been on the board, I've produced. So all sorts of things, just getting to kind of get to know Oregon Straw Hat Players and as a family, really, for the past however many years. I also, because I was so involved in directing, started to assistant direct, co-direct with Oregon Strat players, and then started directing at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, which is the church I go to's school, and then started directing here for Oregon Strat players. So lots of interesting. A lot of my directing background came out of experience, learning things from Oregon Strat players and other places. But then I did go on, and I'm just right now actually finishing a master's degree in theater.
Wow, that's a great background and lots of theater experience. Jack of all trades, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you recently celebrated the 40th anniversary of the organization, is that correct?
Yes, we did. Just
Yeah.
this
So 40
last
years in
year.
the community, that's a commitment. That's
It is.
That's a
it
pretty
is.
incredible thing.
Yeah.
So we know that many people are in love with this Disney classic. In what ways does this stage musical kind of differ from the movie version that people might know
Sure.
really well?
So when they went to the stage version, it was very interesting because this is the first major musical that Disney did on Broadway. It was their very first one. And I think what they tried to do is like make it as close to the animated movie as possible because that's what people loved. And so they brought everything with, but they did add some songs and alter things a little bit, mostly to make it a little longer for audiences and have a little more magic involved. But they did add some songs for Belle and Beast. So you'll have, if you are familiar with the animated one, there'll be new songs for you in the stage version. And then just a couple of years ago, they revamped the script again. So even if you've seen this stage version before, there's changes because they took out some things and moved some things around. And so there's even a little bit, within the last couple of years, they've altered the script a bit too.
Yeah. Sounds like a really good deal for people that have seen it before. Come out, be surprised with what's new in there. That's exciting, for sure. Obviously, this is a super large musical. You just said over 100 people turned out for auditions. So what can audience members here expect to see from this production from you? And what are you most looking forward to when you have seats in the house?
Yeah.
Sorry, people in the house.
Yeah. Well, theater is, a lot of people think it's about the actors and director and all the things, but it's really about the audience because if we didn't have an audience, we wouldn't be doing theater.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so really us telling them a story is what our entire process is about. Just having an audience is an exciting thing. But I think for the audience for this particular production, the difference will be that this isn't going to look like you've seen every single Disney Beauty and the Beast. It is Disney's Beauty and the Beast. There are all those characters and things, but we're taking a little different take on it. And so their costumes are very reminiscent, but not exactly the same.
Sure.
The set is very different from what they might expect. You're not going to come in and see a big castle in the middle of the stage, but you are going to understand the story as we're telling it. And so I'm excited about the fact that it's going to be the story they're familiar with, but there's going to be things they've never seen before.
Sure.
We're playing a lot with shadows, light and darkness, and silhouettes, and a lot more. We've actually added more dance into a show that already has dance.
Yeah.
So I think for people who are coming for the first time, they'll enjoy it, but even if you've seen it before, there'll be new things to be excited about.
That's exciting. Yeah, and our producer for this show, Jordan, is actually assistant stage managing, I believe. And so I've heard
She's
some...
the
stage manager, I stand corrected. She has told me some things, and in particular, kind of being secretive about the costumes. Is that correct?
We are.
Yeah.
Specifically about Beast.
Yeah.
Because our Beast is, the one thing I will tell you is not going to be in a big furry suit. So we want to hide that. We want that to be special, that when he's revealed to the audience and they see him for the first time, that he looks different from what they're used to seeing, but it's special. And same thing with Belle's gown that she wears in the famous dance scene. We're hiding that quite a bit so that people are surprised by what they see.
That's great.
I think they'll appreciate and feel like they are getting Beauty and the Beast, but it's not exactly the same as every production.
Right. That's very exciting. So what kind of challenges have you encountered with this production? Are there any unique challenges producing this type of show in the Performing Arts Center?
I feel like anytime you do, specifically like a Disney show, Disney obviously can do a lot of things on Broadway that we can't do
Correct.
in a setting like community theater. And there's a lot of what we call stage magic. You know, there's flying, there's things turning around and transforming, and all these things that are very difficult to do on a smaller budget in a smaller setting. And so what it forces me to do as a director, which I appreciate, is to think outside the box. We could say, oh, we can't do that because we don't have all those bells and whistles and the tricks, but instead, how can we do the stage magic in a magical way, but it's maybe not exactly the same as Broadway. So that is a big challenge for any show like this that's big, has all those magical elements. This show also has a lot of people in it, and we've cast even more than probably has to be, because we want this to be community theater. We want people involved. And so anytime you're managing large casts, as many high school directors know, it's just a lot of moving parts. When you're coming to scheduling and getting everybody there and learning all the things, it's a lot. So I think those are two big challenges, the magic side of the production, and then just having so many people, costumes, things to keep track of.
Yeah, and from what I understand, there's also been some challenges with the fact that you're doing a Disney copyrighted musical as well, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Many people don't know that when you do a musical, you actually pay for rights, royalties, and rentals. It's a lot of money. Half of your money or more sometimes is going toward that before you even built a thing or put a costume on anybody. And Disney has an additional writer, so in addition to our normal stuff, we get a whole nother writer from Disney where they talk about what you can and can't do. And you don't have to copy them. In fact, they don't want you to copy them. That's actually what they don't want. They want you to take the story they've written, not change it, do your own version of it, but there's also a whole list of things you can and can't do, so you have to pay attention to those things.
That's important. So what kind of role do you see Oregon Straw Hat players playing in this community? And in general, then how can you also help guide people to volunteer, to get involved, to audition for the next show?
Yeah, so Oregon Straw Hat Players, as you said, has been here for 40 years. And I think the involvement and the community's awareness of it has gone, ebbed and flowed throughout the years. I'm really excited right now because I feel like one of the best things is we have a good connection with Oregon High School. We have many students who are in Oregon High School, or even the other schools, coming and being a part of us. And that's huge, because one of our big things is we want to educate. We want children or people who have never done theater to be able to come and be a part of us, and also just learn how to do theater. And I think that's a huge thing for the community, to have this opportunity to come into somewhere and learn about theater. How does theater work? How can I get involved? And you don't have to be an actor. You don't even have to know how to build. There's places everywhere, from stage management, who's managing people and places, to painting, to sewing, to learning how to hang lights. There's just so many opportunities. A lot of what I learned about theater, I learned through Oregon Straw Hat Players, coming through the ranks and learning how to do things. And so I think that is a huge part, how people can get involved. Their whole family can get involved. We have entire families who are working together on the show, and that's a great opportunity.
That's so important for bonding and for buy into the organization, for sure.
And then, of course, we serve the community by providing theater, and I think it's important for people to have access to theater at a level that they can afford. Not everybody can go to Chicago or New York, so they get a chance to see a show and have that access to art. And
I know the PAC holds roughly around 750 people, and I don't doubt that this show is probably going to fill up really quick. So if I were you, I'd make sure you get those tickets as quickly as possible, and make sure you don't miss out on Disney's Beauty and the Beast right here at Oregon High School. So thank you for coming today, Sarah, for talking with us, and we look forward to seeing the show and break a leg.
Thank you.